one of the things I learned from a lot of the punk rock and metal I learned is to turn the bad stuff and the tragedy into something hopeful, something you can learn from. Especially something I learned from Black Sabbath early on. I grew up like I talked about Brian Wilson. This is the third time this year some sort of artist that I looked up to has passed away right before going live. In January, it was David Lynch. A few weeks ago, a month ago, it was Brian Wilson. Today's Ozzy. And I don't like worship celebrities. I don't really care about celebrities, but I do care about art that has impacted me in a lot of ways. Black Sabbath is a really early example of that. My dad put me on to Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys early on. At that same time frame, my mom put me on to Black Sabbath. And I would grow up to love Beach Boys in a very profound way, but didn't love them as early as I did Sabbath. And I wanted to emulate Black Sabbath early on in terms of getting my first guitar, an Epiphone SG. It was Candy Apple Red. My first riff I ever learned was from Iron Man. And that music just meant a whole bunch to me. And, like I was talking today with Jack on his show, we were talking about what environment does it take to create someone like an Ozzy or Black Sabbath? Because, they basically started metal. We could fight about who really started metal. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. You could even say the Beatles started metal with She's So Heavy, with that last riff in that song. So that's contentious. But you know what I mean? And it was interesting thinking about that question, what environment does it take? And these guys were born after World War II in the UK and experienced a war-torn landscape. So it's not so hard to imagine then why these guys were obsessed with the darkness, with death. And we'll get into, I do want to spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's interesting and it's inverted world adjacent, clearly, with the things they were singing about. But I just want to read just that opening line again. For those who don't know, the thing I started with was from War Pigs, one of my favorite songs of all time. The lyrics were written by Geezer, the bass player of Sabbath. And this line, this paragraph, is as relevant today as it was when they put it out in the 60s. I think that was the 60s. Maybe it was the 70s. Sorry, it was the 70s. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. That is today. That is an immortal lyric that is about human nature and the people running everything and what we talk about a lot on this show. So it's just wild to think about how, some people will say it's easy to say these guys were, evil, and, they weren't. I would say they definitely went through some dark times and wouldn't have been the best role models in terms of the lives that they led, especially Ozzy with the drugs and all that. But the art made a difference to me, and it helped. It became a lineage of music that would impact a lot of bands that would also inspire me. But then thinking about this area they grew up in, and I knew people who grew up in the same sort of areas over there, and they were a little younger, but had similar stories of, oh yeah, there's just a bomb that hasn't exploded in this person's basement. It fell out of the sky, no one's touched it, they just left it there. So that becomes your norm. And obviously it affected those types of lyrics. It's not all they sang about, but it's just wild stuff. What is your takeaway, Brandon? I know he's over here grinding, guys.
That's because I fucked up the Rumble stream. Thank you guys for pointing me to that. Obviously I am not all there today, but I totally put our Rumble stream under the PCC channel. So Mary's gonna fucking love that. We'll deal with that tomorrow.
Sorry, guys.
Apologies. Thank you guys for rejoining.
Everything was so fine. Everything's great. We haven't had issues in this room for so long. And then we were rocking out. Go live.
What is it you say? The Gremlins.
The Gremlins.
The goddamn Gremlins. Yeah. Apparently that's a thing today. So
while I'm over here talking about Sabbath, if you can't hear it, Brandon's over there furiously typing, trying to.
I just put the stream back together in about 25 seconds and got it back live.
Dude, thank you. This is one of the second time you have to troubleshoot on the fly.
This time was my fault, though. I'm taking full responsibility for this dick up. This was totally mine. Last time it was Serge, so
it happens.
I'm not taking the fall for your shit,
I'm going to blame Serge for this one, too. Is that okay? I don't know. Can I do that? He might
Go
have
ahead.
Remotely.
Yeah.
He did it remotely, right?
He's also probably the reason why we're having audio problems, but I'm not going to throw him under the bus either, you know.
But if you could take a second, as a musician, another musician in this room, what does Sabbath mean to you? What about Ozzy? Like, this is a dark, sad day.
Ozzy was actually one of the first major musical influences in my life. Before I had even considered playing drums or anything like that, I was maybe like 8, 9 years old when I got my first Ozzy album, and I listened to it on repeat, and then just demanded my parents buy me like every other album. Yeah. So I had the whole damn collection. I used to sit there and listen to it, and I only got to see him one time live, and I was telling Shane about this. I got to go to an Ozfest sometime in my late teens, early 20s, and I remember Ozzy was still up doing it. He was still running around. It was a super, super hot day in Chicago, and they came on at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. The sun was just blaring, and Ozzy was running around with a garden hose on stage, spraying people down in the crowd, and he had these like buckets of ice water off to the side. And at one point, he went and grabbed one of these buckets and just kind of frantically ran around until he seen me, and then he just hit me right in the face with a whole bucket of ice water, and it was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it sucked because, you know, my parents listened to him, you know, a lot when I was a kid. They got me into him, and then I listened to him a lot, and then obviously when I got into rock music, you know, some of my favorite songs like You're Shot in the Dark and you know, War Pigs, just very influential, and it's a sad fucking day. Really sad day for music. I saw somebody earlier that was like, let's get right down to it. His music wasn't that good, and I was like, fuck you, do better. You know, like, do better. I'd like to see you try.
I think he had great music. I mean, not every song was amazing, but
you know,
songs that great were
comes
really
from a
great.
Normal time of music, like early days of rock. You know, get right down to it. He was one of the godfathers of rock, and you know, he deserves that hat nod. So thank you, Ozzy, for everything.
Won't play that clip. Do we have that?
Yeah, actually, Shane actually posted this earlier.
Are we still on Pop Culture Crisis? Because we can kind of
No. I killed it and got the hell out of there.
I'm Brett Dasovic, everybody, and this is Mary Morgan.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't hold a candle to Mary. She's way better than me at this. So this is just, it's super, super short, but it's a clip of Ozzy when he was on Letterman way back after the death of Randy Rhoads, and him speaking about that. Let me make sure I got volume on this before I pull another flub. Yeah, I think I do. Let's go.
A personal tragedy in your life.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I'm surprised that you went ahead with your commitment to be here, and I appreciate that. And I know you wanted to take a minute here to explain.
All I can say is, in the last week, guys, people out there, I've lost 2 of the greatest people in my life. But it ain't going to stop me, because I'm for rock and roll is for the people. And I love people, and that's what I'm about.
I respect that spirit.
It's one of the best quotes I think ever by him, because that is, for a lot of musicians, that is the mentality. You know, the show must go on. So, and we're talking about a guy that knew he was on his way out, and he put together this unbelievable show in Birmingham a few weeks ago, which some of you saw, and he gave the performance of a lifetime, in my opinion, and absolutely crushed it. You know, but it also was sad to see that, you know, he couldn't get out of his throne. He was in this chair, and someone had said afterwards on social media that Ozzy had graduated from the Prince of Darkness to the King of Darkness, and I completely agree. Ooh. And in Egypt, when kings die, they become gods. So I believe, you know, if there wasn't a god before, there is now, and his name is Ozzy Osbourne.
And you last night mentioned that very show.
Yeah, and Shane brought this up to me and blew my mind earlier, because he was like, you know, we were just talking about that show last night, and I stopped in my tracks for a second. I looked at Shane. I'm like, did I kill Ozzy Osbourne?
No.
Shane's like, no, you didn't. And I'm like,
no.
You know, so
all the drugs he did for 50 years killed Ozzy. But I mean, he was on, like I said to you, he was on bonus time for 30 years. It was amazing he made it this far. it was just, we were talking about the drummers, right, last night?
Yeah,
Travis
it
and all
was.
that stuff?
We got into talking about Danny Carey and
It's amazing.
him and Travis and
Right.
Chad Smith did that solo kind of thing, and
Yep.
I've been seeing videos for it for weeks, and it's just so awesome. That whole show was just crazy. Like,
Yep.
I'm so happy. I wish I could have actually gone to see
know.
it. That would have been amazing.
I know.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad he got to do his final show like that. And
I agree.
It's just crazy that it's
Yep.
just a couple of weeks before his death.
It was nice that he had that final goodbye, and a lot of people on Twitter were like really upset about any promotion of Ozzy because they see him as satanic, and he certainly did use satanic imagery throughout his career every now and then. But I think Ozzy also considered himself to be a Christian, and who knows what his heart was like. But it's just interesting, the people who recoil from what he did, whereas I see him as someone who was like in Sabbath, they were holding up to society like this is the true darkness of the world, the war machine, the military-industrial complex, these dark witches. That's something that's embedded in society. It's in society's DNA. I never really thought of them as promoting it. I always thought of it, even before I was religious, I always thought of them as someone who was trying to expose it. Like someone how and this is another controversial figure, but someone I like a lot, Marilyn Manson, putting in a mirror on society, being like, this is like the hypocrisy of the world. It's clearly, there's some things that might throw some people off and you might recoil from. But a lot of it is like, in the 90s when it comes to someone like Manson, Bill Clinton starts speaking out about how an artist like Manson is reprehensible. And then he's like, well, I'm just making music and art. You might not like it. It might be controversial, but you're the one who's bombing Kosovo. You're literally killing people. And that's, Manson's from the lineage of Sabbath. And, I like that kind of music and that kind of art that, it might appear dark on the surface, but I think when you look at it, it's actually showing you that these people have hope. And a lot of that hope comes from exposing just how dark reality is. We talk a lot on the show. I think it was the other day with 6'7" Kevin when I was talking about how a lot of people refuse to give up the luxury of the illusion that we are not living in a dystopia, but we are living in a dystopia. And art like this stuff is some of those things that shatters that illusion, which I think is a good thing. I don't think that's a black pill. I don't think that's a bad outlook. I think not being ignorant of how dark everything is around you makes you a better person and helps you raise better kids and put a better foundation within your family and yourself as you navigate this crazy world, which is clearly crazy. Like I've been saying, the status quo of the world is unfortunately darkness, and you're being attacked at every possible level. So, I love music, and I love music that can help shine a light on that darkness, even though sometimes it might appear to be dark. So, yeah, rock stars are dying off, and we don't have many left. It's crazy because we have Liam Gallagher. I love Liam Gallagher. I love Oasis. Very different type of music than Sabbath, but I would say Liam's a rock star who's still alive. I still like people like Manson and Trent Reznor. But
are you really gonna leave out the anomaly that is Keith Richards, or like?
Well, he's transcended. He's beyond like rock and roll,
like,
right?
At this point, I'm like,
what is that?
Is Keith Richards the ultimate skin job now? Like, have we gotten to the point to where now we have to look away from Biden and start looking at Keith Richards? And how the hell are you still alive?
That, and you see Iggy Pop on stage still, like he's looking like E.T.
I mean,
but he's still killing it.
Even Betty White had to go at some point.
She did,
and she kicked it for a long ass time.
She got harder and harder. She was a gangster by the end.
Yep, but she was also still number one on everybody's death card. Because that was the big winner. But man, I can't believe how long she evaded the Reaper for.
It's unbelievable.
Super impressive.
Unbelievable. Well, shout out to Sabbath and to Ozzy for all the music. We are very grateful for it. Grateful for things like Ozfest.
Yeah.
You and I both appreciate. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there as well. Giving stages to a lot of bands that were very important to me that wouldn't have existed without Sabbath, without Ozzy. So it's amazing to see. He was very supportive of new music. Not everyone's like that. There's not a lot of people in all these industries that want to support people and make them, successful. And they were doing a great job at that. I loved Ozfest. I listened to those live albums all the time. So yeah, thank you guys for the music.